Hey everybody, welcome to this video. So in this video I'm going to show you guys how you can create your own hooks using React hooks. And this hook in particular I'm going to show you how to make is using local storage as your state holder. So essentially it's going to be the same thing as the useState hook, except your state is going to be persistent. So on refresh it's not going to be cleared out, and it's going to stay in the user's local storage until they come back. So I'm on stackblitz.com. I'm going to start a new React project. And first, let's go ahead and get rid of this useless constructor and useless class component. And we'll go ahead and just make a arrow function and clean this up real quick. And let's go ahead and get rid of the hello component. And let's see here. So first thing we want to do is we want to set up, let's just set up a normal useState hook, and then we'll convert it into a custom local storage hook. So let's just say we're going to store some fruit. So we're going to say fruit, and then we're going to put the name of our fruit right here. So first let's go ahead and pull out the useState hook, the useState hook, and we're going to say const fruit set fruit is equal to useState, and we'll just start it off with an empty parentheses. And then we'll go ahead and just put the fruit right here. And what we'll do is we will put a button, and this button is going to say apple, and on click is going to set the fruit to an apple, like so. And now we can set it to apple. Let's go ahead and create another one that sets it to banana, like so. So fruit, apple, banana, apple. If we refresh, it's going to be reset, because every time this component renders, it's going to use the state of an empty string until we set it afterwards. So now what we want to do is we want to create a custom hook that will first pull from local storage when you first render, and then whenever we set it, we want it to set that value in local storage. So what we'll do is we will create a function called useLocalState, and we'll just go ahead and set it to the same thing as this for now, except we want to make this kind of generic because we want to be able to reuse this hook in other places. So what we'll say is we'll say local and set local equals useState, and then we're going to return local and set local. So essentially this is doing the same exact thing as useState. It's not really very useful, but here's where it gets useful. So instead of pulling out the default value of the state from this empty quote, we're going to pull it out from local storage.getItem, and now we need to find out where in our local storage are we going to get that item. We'll go ahead and pass that to the hook as a parameter. So local item. So that means let's just go ahead and comment that out, and we'll say useLocalState. So if we put in fruit here, what's going to happen is we're going to say useLocalState. We're going to pass in this string of fruit. It's going to come in here as a local item. And now we're going to say useState get the item fruit. So now what is going to happen is it's going to look inside of our, I opened up my developer window here and go to applications, and you can see we haven't set it yet, but this is where it's going to be set in our local storage, and we'll be able to see what that storage is. And it's always going to pull from the same spot. So let me close this down, give some more room in there. Okay. So now what we need to do, let's go ahead and see what happens when we set it. Cool. So we can set it. We're using the local state. We're setting the fruit, and we can see that it is there. However, we're only getting the item out of local storage. We're not setting it in local storage anywhere. So we're still passing the regular set state function back out. So what we need to do is we need to change this set location to something else. Let's just call it set state, and we're going to make another function in here called set location. And the set location is going to take a whatever the new item that you want to set to the state is, a new item. And what it's going to do is going to go into local storage dot set item, and we're going to set the same item that we used to instantiate the local state. So we'll say local item. And we're going to set that local item with the new item. And then we'll go ahead and set the state, which is this hook right here, because not only do we want to update our local storage, we want to update our state that we just instantiated with the same item. So new item, just like that. Okay, so now when we set Apple, you can see it shows up right in our local storage. And when you change it to banana, it changes right there. When we refresh, it's going to pull it out of the local storage, and there it is right there. Now we have persistent state. All right, so let's just go ahead and get rid of that and clean things up a bit. All right, now let's say we wanted to have a second item that uses this local state hook. So let's just say we want to have a second fruit. So we'll just copy and paste this right here. And you know what? This second fruit is actually going to be in its own, well, yeah, it's going to be in its own component. Just to show you how this would work in multiple different components across your application. So I'll go ahead and just cut that out of there, and I'll just say this is going to be in the fruit. We'll say second fruit component. Okay, and add a new file, second fruit.js, and we'll just paste this in here. And I'm just going to copy this and take stuff out I don't need. So 1 second. Don't need this, don't need that. It's going to be second fruit. Okay. Cut that out, paste that in here, like so. And now we want to actually use the same hook that we've already made. So we're going to get rid of it here, and we're just going to call it second fruit and set second fruit. Use local state. So I'm going to leave this as the same local state, and you'll see what happens when we try and do that. But first, let me export this function out. So let's go ahead and put this hook in a separate file. That way we can export it and use it in multiple places. So we'll cut that out there, and we'll say hooks.js. Paste that in there. We just got to export like so. So now in our index, we got to make sure we import the use local state hook from hooks like so. And then we got to actually import the use state hook in our hooks because we are using that in here. And we don't need React though. That, okay, save that. And now we need to import second fruit from second fruit. Like that. Okay. Element type is invalid. All right, let's take a look. What are we doing wrong here? I think it's actually going to be in second fruit. Oh yeah, we're not exporting it. Export default second fruit. Use local state. So now we're getting the error that this is not defined because we have to now import use local state from hooks. And now we get fruit is not defined because we need to change this to second fruit, and we need to change these to set second fruit. Okay, so now remember, we're using the same local storage, so you would think that because we're using the same local storage, we see the same fruit here because it's pulling it from the same spot in your local storage. However, you'll notice that when you change one, the other one doesn't change. And so since they're using the same local storage, on initialization, they're going to pull from the same source. So whatever the last one is you click is what they're both going to be rendered as. So I just click banana. When I hit refresh, they're both going to be banana because they're both pulling from the same place. However, they're using a different state in your application. So remember, like I said, what we're doing is we're setting the local state and then, we're setting it in the local storage and then we're setting it our state. And these two states are instantiated in different places. So on the app, we're instantiating it here. This is one instantiation of our state. And on second fruit, we're instantiating it here. So there's two different states, but they're pulling from one source on rendering or on initial load. And so that's why you get this kind of weird error. So to fix this, there's a couple. This might actually be something you want to do. I'm not sure what scenario you would want, but possibly you might want to pull from the same source and then have two different states go on before you refresh your page. That might be something you want to do. But for now, if you want these to be completely separate and pull from completely separate places, we need to rename this to second fruit. It doesn't really matter what this is. It just needs to be consistent across the application. So now you'll see second fruit does not have any fruit, but first one does. And if we select one and we refresh, you'll see now they both have independent fruits. Now let's say you wanted this fruit to be the same state as well as local storage. So in that case, we need to use the context API in order to pass our state into our context, and then we can just pull it out of the context from both places. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to pull the use context hook, and then we also need to export constant fruit context is equal to react.create context, and we'll just do that. Okay, and so now instead of this div, we'll say fruit context dot provider, and same thing at the end, like that. And now we're going to set the value to be what came out of this local state hook. So we'll say value is equal to fruit set fruit, like so. And so now this fruit is still pulling from this local state, but if we go into second fruit, we can then since we're going to be using the same single state, we can get rid of this, and we'll say use context. And sorry, we don't actually need to use context here. But here on second fruit, we will say constant second fruit. It doesn't really matter what you name them because it's all about the order. Set second fruit. It's really the same thing though. It's equal to use context, and then we need the fruit context. We need to import that still. So we'll say import fruit context from index, like that. And so now they are the same state. And if you look, first let's just delete this because we're not using it anymore. And so now you can see there's only one single state and it's being held. And if we refresh, it's going to pull from this state, pass it into the context right here. We're creating context, and we're going to get our state from our local storage. We're going to pass it into our context provider, and then we're going to use the fruit from the local state, and we're passing it into our context provider as well. And too much. Let me get rid of this. Okay. And we're passing that same fruit. It doesn't even have to be second fruit. We can just call this fruit because that's what it is. It's the same exact thing. It would be confusing to call it two different things. So I'll just fix that up like that. Okay. So hopefully this helps you learn how you can create your own hooks, how you can reuse them across your application, and how you can use them with other APIs such as the useContext API to pass along your local state and storage, however it may be you want to do. I hope this video helped. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to see any videos in the future. Thank you. See you later.